The galaxy was silent in a way that felt wrong. Not the quiet of peace, but the quiet of defeat. Human ships floated listlessly among the stars, their engines weak, their weapons spent, their crews exhausted. Across the void, the Vorath fleet, black, sharp, and unstoppable, swept from system to system, leaving planets burning and civilizations broken in their wake. Humanity had fought hard. Too hard, and now it was clear, the war was lost. On the bridge of the last operational human command ship, the ardent horizon, General Kara Voss stared at the display screens. Each blip represented a fleet, a city, or a world, most of them gone. Smoke and fire replaced the light of once thriving colonies. The Vorath did not negotiate, they did not spare, they simply destroyed. Her heart ached at the loss, but she could not let despair rule her. There was one thing that still burned within her, hope. Fragile, dangerous, almost foolish hope, but hope nonetheless. Lieutenant Ron, a young strategist barely out of the academy, leaned over her shoulder. "General, we've run every scenario. The fleets are scattered, the defenses are gone, and our allies. They're all either destroyed or captured." His voice trembled slightly, though he tried to keep it steady. "There's nothing left we can do. The Vorath outnumber us 10-1. They've broken every alliance we made. They're coming here, we can't." Outside, through the viewport, distant explosions lit up the blackness of space. One human colony after another vanished from the charts, consumed by Vorath weapons more advanced than anything humanity had faced. Each flash was a reminder, time was running out. Ron swallowed hard. "General, even if we hold this planet for a few weeks, it won't matter. The Vorath will come and they will wipe us out. The galaxy is theirs." Voss moved to it immediately. The display showed a strange transmission, unlike any human or known alien code. It pulsed across the subspace channels, ancient and raw. Ron leaned closer, frowning. "General," he said slowly, "I don't recognize this. It's older than anything in our archives. I think it's a Chiron signal." The Chiron were a species spoken of in hushed tones, even among the bravest military leaders. They were said to be unstoppable, merciless, and utterly indifferent to the lives of others. Whole fleets had disappeared simply for crossing them once. Even the Vorath had avoided them for centuries. To call the Chiron was to summon a storm no one could control. Ron's voice was almost a whisper. "The Chiron are extinct, General. We thought they were gone forever. Why would they answer now?" The bridge felt like a coffin drifting through space, filled with humans too tired to hope and too stubborn to die without trying. Voss straightened, her hand resting on the rail. "Prepare the communication protocol," she ordered. "We are calling the Chiron. If they see weakness, if they see desperation." They began the preparation, typing ancient codes, activating long-dormant subspace transmitters, and sending a call that had not been sent in thousands of years. As the message shot into the void, Voss walked to the viewport. Stars stretched infinitely, each one a potential home, a potential grave. Her mind wandered to the billions of people lost, to the cities that had burned, and to the children who would never see tomorrow. And yet, somewhere deep inside, a flame of defiance refused to go out. Humans had survived worse than this. They had endured extinction events, wars, and betrayals. And now, when the universe seemed to have given up on them, they still stood. A soft vibration pulsed through the ship as the message left human space and entered the uncharted zones where no one dared travel. Voss felt her heart tighten. This was the moment of truth. If the Chiron answered, humanity's fate could turn on a knife's edge. If they did not, well, then humanity would vanish quietly, leaving only the memory of stubborn defiance. Minutes stretched into hours. The Vorath fleets closed in, scanning for human activity. Small skirmishes erupted near the outskirts of the system. The crew fought tirelessly, holding off attacks with what little they had left. Every blast from a Vorath ship reminded them how fragile their hope was. Then finally the subspace screens flickered. A new signal appeared, untraceable and immense. The air seemed to vibrate with its arrival. It was unlike anything the human crew had ever seen, ships enormous and jagged, moving with an alien grace. The Chiron had arrived. Ron's hands shook as he spoke. "General, they're here. They actually came." "Or for respect." For the first time, they hesitated. Voss turned to Ron. "Prepare the fleet for joint operations. I don't know what the Chiron want, but they are here. We have a chance. And human chance is stronger than any weapon the Vorath can bring. We don't know their language, their motives, or..." Silence followed. The crew watched in awe. They had never seen power like this. Not even the Vorath, with all their fleets and weapons, had moved with such certainty and control. Voss spoke softly, almost to herself. "The war may have been lost until now. And now it is humanity's turn to fight back. Voss clenched her fists and felt the weight of responsibility settle over her shoulders. They were battered, cornered, and few in number. But humans had something no one else had: ingenuity, spirit, and the courage to face the impossible. And with the Chiron's shadow now looming over the battlefield, the first seeds of hope began to grow, fragile but real. The battle for survival was only beginning. Humanity had lost much, but they had not yet lost themselves. And as the stars burned cold around them, Voss whispered a vow to the universe: "We will not die quietly, we will not vanish. We will fight, and we will endure." And somewhere beyond human understanding, the Chiron watched, their intentions unreadable. The war had changed, and no one, not even the Vorath, would forget it. The Chiron ships hovered silently at the edge of human space, their jagged silhouettes dark against the stars. Unlike any other fleet humanity had ever seen, they moved with precision that felt almost alive, as if the vessels themselves were thinking. On the bridge of the ardent horizon, General Kara Voss and her crew stared at them in awe and unease. Lieutenant Ron's voice trembled. "General, they're not communicating. How are we supposed to know what they want? They could destroy us as easily as the Vorath." Her eyes traced the Chiron formations, noting their speed, their spacing, the way they responded instantly to minor movements in space. "Then we find a way to show them we are not enemies," she said finally. "We have nothing to offer them but our courage, our willingness to survive, and our word that we will fight alongside them if they help us. That is all we can do." The humans could feel the tension as if it pressed against their chests. Every officer on the bridge knew the truth. The Chiron's arrival alone had not guaranteed safety. It had only opened a narrow window of opportunity. A sudden alarm blared. Sensors had detected a Vorath probe moving at maximum speed toward the human fleet. Before anyone could react, a flash of light tore across space. The probe was gone. The Chiron had struck it down without warning, obliterating it in a single, precise move. The human crew stared, mouths open. "Precision," Ron whispered. "Unbelievable. But how do we trust them? How do we know they won't destroy us once the Vorath are gone?" Human engineers tried to adjust their fleet formations to coordinate with the Chiron presence, but the aliens moved in ways that seemed random yet perfectly effective. They struck Vorath scouts at long range, then disappeared, reappearing in unexpected positions. The Vorath, who had dominated every battlefield, were now cautious, uncertain. The tension was electric when a new, larger Vorath fleet appeared on long-range sensors. They had likely detected the Chiron, and their formation was tight, disciplined, and aggressive. Voss knew the fight was inevitable. She addressed the bridge crew. "Listen carefully. We cannot defeat them alone. The Vorath still outnumber us. But together, humans and Chiron, if we can coordinate even partially, we may just have a chance." The Vorath fleet advanced steadily, their weapons primed, their ships glowing ominously. On the ardent horizon, engineers and officers worked at a frantic pace, adjusting shields, weapons, and thrusters, trying to anticipate Vorath movements while studying the Chiron's unpredictable patterns. Finally, the Vorath initiated an attack. Energy beams lanced across space toward the human fleet, striking some ships before the shields could fully respond. Explosions shook the smaller vessels, and alarms blared. The crew of the Ardent Horizon braced themselves, knowing that a single direct hit from a Vorath capital ship could destroy their command center. Then came the Chiron. With terrifying precision, one of their massive ships swooped down from above, striking the Vorath flagship directly. The explosion was instantaneous, vaporizing the lead vessel and scattering the rest of the fleet. Vorath ships faltered in confusion, their coordination disrupted by the sheer force of the attack. The human crew gasped. They had never seen power like this. The Chiron were not fighting for fun or conquest. They were striking with purpose, calculated and deadly. Voss turned to Ron. "See, even fear can be guided if we are clever enough to channel it." Perhaps the Chiron were drawn by the same instinct that had allowed them to dominate the galaxy for millennia. Perhaps they saw potential in the humans, or perhaps they were curious. Whatever the reason, their arrival had changed the battlefield, and humans were not about to waste the opportunity. Over the next several hours, humans began coordinating small attacks alongside the Chiron. Communication was limited. They could not fully understand the alien strategy, but by observing their movements, humans adapted. Small teams led daring raids on Vorath supply lines, drawing fire and creating openings for the Chiron to strike with deadly efficiency. Lieutenant Ron marveled at their teamwork. It's like they anticipate every move, he said quietly. And we can only react, barely keeping up. They had survived the initial Vorath attack, they had observed the Chiron's power firsthand, and they had taken part in the first successful coordinated strikes. Humanity had not won the war, but for the first time in months it felt like survival was possible. Yet the tension remained. The Chiron were still unreadable, their intentions unclear. Could they be trusted? Would they leave once the immediate threat was neutralized? And what price would humans pay if the Chiron decided they were more trouble than they were worth? Voss walked the bridge in quiet thought. She understood the risk, but she also knew that in war the bold survived and the timid perished. Humanity had little choice. To survive, they had to embrace the unknown. A new alert sounded. Ron rushed to the console. "General, we're receiving a transmission. It's not human, it's not Vorath, it's from the Chiron." They would fight alongside humans, but only if humans could demonstrate they were willing to act, to take risks, and to fight with determination. Voss nodded. "Then we give them a demonstration. Gather all able ships. We strike at the Vorath staging area near the outer colonies. It's dangerous, yes, but it will show the Chiron that humans do not hesitate, even in the face of annihilation." Human pilots checked their weapons, engineers tuned engines to their limits, and soldiers prepared for boarding actions if necessary. Every man and woman knew the odds were against them, but every human also knew that they could not surrender. When the fleet jumped into hyperspace toward the outer colonies, Voss gave a quiet command. "Remember this, all of you. The galaxy may fear the Chiron, the Vorath, or even the darkness itself, but humans have survived against impossible odds before. We survive now. We survive because we do not give up. Not today, not ever." The human fleet tensed, ready for the impossible. The Chiron ships moved into formation, their jagged shapes ominous and terrifying. Humans could feel the alien power coiled like a predator, waiting for the signal. Voss looked around at her crew, her eyes bright with determination. "This is our chance. We show them who we are, not just the Chiron, but the Vorath, the galaxy, and even ourselves. Humans fight, humans survive, humans endure." For the first time in months, the tide felt like it might be turning. The Vorath faltered under the unexpected human-Chiron coordination. Explosions lit the darkness of space. Ships that had been trapped or destroyed months ago now had a chance to escape or strike back. On the bridge of the ardent horizon, Voss smiled faintly. "We are not safe yet," she said, "but we are alive. And as long as we are alive, we fight. Humans never stop fighting. And that is something worth fighting for." But for the first time, humanity dared to imagine victory. The stars stretched endlessly outside the ardent horizon, cold and silent except for the distant glimmers of battle. The Vorath had regrouped, and their larger fleet was advancing with terrifying speed. Despite the success of the previous skirmishes, the humans knew that survival depended on more than courage. They needed careful planning, fast thinking, and the willingness to take risks no one else would. On the bridge, General Kara Voss studied the readings. The Chiron ships hovered just beyond the system, their jagged forms unmoving, almost contemplative. There was no way to predict what they would do next. They could annihilate the Vorath, or they could leave at any moment. Humans had no choice but to adapt to their movements and think creatively around their presence. Lieutenant Ron leaned over a console, tracing the paths of the Chiron vessels. "General, they don't move like conventional fleets. Their trajectory is unpredictable. They strike, then vanish, then strike again. They seem to anticipate Vorath movements before they even happen. What if they misinterpret our maneuvers? Perhaps not because they care about us, but because they respect determination." The human crew watched, awestruck, as the Vorath scrambled in confusion. Ron's voice trembled. "General, they're incredible. How do we even fight alongside them without being crushed?" The human fleet began coordinating subtle maneuvers alongside the Chiron. They couldn't rely on perfect timing or shared strategies, but by observing the alien movements and reacting instinctively, they created openings for small strikes against the Vorath. Explosions flared across space, illuminating the battlefield with violent bursts of light. Despite the success, tension remained high. Every crew member knew that one misstep could mean annihilation. Every officer understood that the Chiron could turn on them at any moment. The unpredictability was both terrifying and exhilarating. Humans had never felt so alive, nor so exposed. A sudden alert cut through the quiet of the bridge. Vorath scouts had detected a weakly defended human colony near the edge of the system. The colony was home to thousands of civilians, and the Vorath were moving to obliterate it. Ron's face went pale. "General, if we don't act, they'll destroy everyone there. This is our chance to show the Chiron what humans are willing to risk. But if we show the Chiron that humans will fight for each other, even against impossible odds, we may earn their trust, and with it, a chance to survive." Civilians on the colony below could only watch the lights of the battle from orbit, praying for survival. Suddenly, one of the Chiron ships descended from above, striking the Vorath fleet with terrifying speed. In moments, a Vorath cruiser was vaporized. The human crew gasped at the sheer power of the strike. They had seen it before, but this time it was different. The Chiron were no longer merely observing. They were participating, but on their own terms. Voss's gaze remained steady. "Do not rely on them alone. We fight with them, yes, but we lead with our own courage. We'll show them what humans are made of." As the battle intensified, the Vorath High Commander appeared on sensors, a massive, imposing vessel bristling with weapons. Its presence alone caused smaller Vorath ships to fall back slightly. Voss studied the readings. "This is it," she said quietly. "The tipping point. If we falter here, humanity may not survive. If we succeed, we show the Chiron that humans are worth fighting with." The Chiron watched silently, their presence looming like a predator ready to strike. Humans could feel the alien power around them, immense and terrifying, but instead of fear, Voss felt a spark of determination. Humanity had always survived when all odds were against them. Now was no different. The trap worked. The Vorath flagship followed the humans into the asteroid field, its massive weapons unable to target effectively. Human ships struck from unexpected angles, hitting weak points with precision. Explosions erupted across the flagship, shaking it violently. For the first time, the Vorath faltered. Ron's voice was filled with excitement and disbelief. "It's working. They're breaking. They're actually breaking." Panic rippled through the smaller ships, and alarms blared across the ardent horizon. Voss remained calm. "We adapt," she said. "We improvise. That is how humans survive. Everyone focus, use the asteroids for cover, and coordinate fire on the flagship. We do not give up." The pulse struck some vessels, but others dodged, weaving through the debris with astonishing skill. Humans fought not just with weapons, but with ingenuity, turning the Vorath's own power against them. The Chiron finally acted. One of their massive ships struck the Vorath flagship from above, cutting through its defenses and causing massive explosions. The humans pressed the attack, coordinated by instinct and courage rather than formal communication. Minutes felt like hours as the battle raged. Smoke and debris filled space, punctuated by bright flashes of energy. Human ships dodged, struck, and retreated, always moving, always thinking, always surviving. Slowly, the Vorath fleet began to crumble. Their ships broke formation, their weapons faltered, and their morale faltered under the combined assault of humans and Chiron. Ron watched in awe. "I never thought humans could do this. With them," he gestured toward the Chiron fleet, "we actually stand a chance." Courage, creativity, and the refusal to give up. That is what earns respect, even from the most feared beings in the galaxy. Today we fought against impossible odds. We survived, we endured, and we showed the Chiron that humans are not weak. We are not to be ignored, we are to be reckoned with. Or perhaps they simply recognized that humans are unpredictable, resourceful, and willing to risk everything. Either way, it is enough. We earned our place in this battle. And this is just the beginning. The Chiron ships hovered silently, their presence a reminder of the power that could be summoned, but also of the responsibility that came with it. The war was far from over. The Vorath still existed. Other fleets waited in the shadows. But humanity had survived this day, and in doing so, had taken the first step toward rewriting the fate of the galaxy. Voss allowed herself a small, quiet smile. Humans fight, humans endure, humans survive. And as long as we do, no one, not even the Vorath, not even the darkest shadows of space, will forget it. But for the humans on the ardent horizon, the fact that they were alive, victorious, and capable of daring the impossible was more than enough. The stars stretched endlessly, and humanity, though battered and wary, had begun to shine once more. The galaxy seemed quieter after the battle, but it was only an illusion. Across countless star systems, the Vorath had regrouped. Their fleets, though battered, were still vast and dangerous. The humans knew the war was far from over. On the bridge of the ardent horizon, General Kara Voss studied the readings with a focused intensity. The battle with the Vorath flagship had been a victory, but it was a small one. A few sparks of hope could be snuffed out in an instant. Lieutenant Ron approached her, eyes wide with concern. General, the Vorath are reorganizing. They've retreated for now, but they're building forces across multiple systems. If we don't act fast, they'll strike again, and humanity won't survive. Even with the Chiron, we might not. Humans could not predict their moves, but they had learned to observe, to anticipate, and to act with timing that complemented the Chiron's overwhelming power. Voss gathered her officers. We have an opportunity. The Vorath are concentrating their fleets in the outer rim. It is our chance to strike at the heart of their operations. If we can disrupt their command and supply lines, we may finally turn the tide. But we must be clever. We cannot simply throw ourselves at them. That is our advantage. Combine that with the Chiron's raw power and we have a chance. Failure meant extinction. Survival meant daring the impossible. As the fleet approached the outer rim, sensors picked up the Vorath staging area, a massive network of warships, supply vessels, and command centers spread across multiple systems. The fleet was heavily defended, but humans had an advantage: knowledge, courage, and unpredictability. Voss turned to her bridge crew. We split into two groups. One attacks directly, drawing their attention. The other moves through asteroid fields and debris to strike at supply lines and command nodes. Timing will be everything. Humans must move fast, think faster, and never hesitate. We still can't communicate fully with them. Explosions erupted in space, some human vessels destroyed, others forced to retreat. But the fleet pressed forward, weaving through debris fields and asteroids with daring maneuvers. The Chiron remained at a distance at first, observing. Then, with terrifying precision, one of their massive ships struck a Vorath command cruiser. The explosion was instantaneous, obliterating the vessel in seconds. The human crew gasped at the display of power. The Vorath faltered, their formation disrupted by the sudden loss of leadership. Voss seized the opportunity. All units advance, target supply lines and command nodes, draw the enemy into traps. Humans fight smarter, not just harder. Engineers rerouted power to shields and engines, allowing vessels to dodge attacks that would have destroyed them. The Chiron followed, hitting key targets with deadly accuracy. Despite the progress, the battle was brutal. Several human ships were lost. Explosions rocked the fleet, debris floated across space, and alarms blared constantly. The human crew felt the weight of every decision. One wrong move and they could be destroyed instantly. Ron watched the unfolding battle, awe and fear in equal measure. General, this is insane. We're holding our own, but barely. If the Vorath regroup, they could wipe us out completely. We force them to respond to us, not the other way around. That is how humans survive. Human ingenuity shone through every maneuver. Ships navigated asteroid belts to ambush Vorath supply lines, smaller teams infiltrated command nodes using stealth drones, and engineers hacked communication relays to sow confusion. The Vorath struggled to maintain order. Their massive fleets were powerful but rigid and predictable. The humans, unpredictable and daring, exploited every weakness. Every strike disrupted Vorath coordination, and every human loss was met with renewed determination to fight harder. Hours into the assault, sensors detected the Vorath High Commander, an enormous vessel bristling with weapons and shields. Its presence dominated the battlefield. Voss knew that defeating it would turn the tide completely. "We target the flagship," she said, "but we must be smart. Draw it out, weaken its defenses, and strike together. Humans and Chiron, if we act in sync, we may finally break their power." But the humans held their nerve, dodging, counterattacking, and using the environment to their advantage. The Chiron finally intervened fully. Massive ships struck the Vorath flagship from above and behind, cutting through shields and tearing away sections of the vessel. Explosions shook the fleet. For the first time, the Vorath High Commander faltered. Ron shouted, "It's working." The flagship is taking massive damage. Explosions ripped through the flagship, and smaller Vorath ships began retreating under the combined assault of humans and Chiron. The bridge crew watched in awe as the tide turned. The Vorath fleet, once unstoppable, was in disarray. Their ships scattered, fleeing into the void. The humans had done the impossible. They had turned the battle, using courage, intelligence, and daring maneuvers alongside the Chiron's raw power. Voss allowed herself a small smile. Humans fight, humans endure, humans survive, and today we have proven it. They respected our courage. For the first time, humanity had not just survived, they had turned the tide. But Voss knew this was only the beginning. The Vorath still existed, other fleets waited in hidden systems, and the Chiron remained unpredictable. Humanity had survived a major victory, but the war was far from over. She addressed her officers. Today, we fought against impossible odds. We survived. We endured. We proved that humans are a force to be reckoned with, but we cannot rest. The galaxy is still dangerous, and the Vorath will not forgive their defeat easily. We must plan our next moves carefully. But we have shown them something important. Humans will fight no matter the odds. That is a lesson the galaxy must learn. Voss allowed herself a quiet thought. The war was far from over. But humanity had survived a major victory, and in doing so had proven that even in the face of overwhelming power, the human spirit could endure, adapt, and fight back. The Chiron ships hovered silently, observing, calculating. Humans did not know their motives, and perhaps they never would. But for the first time in what felt like forever, humans had allies who could match the most feared species in the galaxy. And humanity had shown, beyond doubt, that even when the war seemed lost, courage and ingenuity could change everything. Voss turned to Ron, her expression calm but resolute. We fight, we survive, we endure. And we will continue to do so, until the galaxy learns that humans are not to be underestimated. But humanity had learned a truth the universe could not ignore. When humans are cornered, when they face impossible odds, they fight harder, faster, and smarter than anyone could predict. And the Chiron, silent and inscrutable, watched. The galaxy held its breath. The remnants of the Vorath forces were scattered, but their power still threatened countless systems. General Kara Voss stood on the bridge of the ardent horizon, her eyes fixed on the display of the Vorath capital system. It was massive, a swirling fortress of ships, energy fields, and planetary defenses. Every sensor screamed danger. Every officer on the bridge felt the weight of the coming battle. Lieutenant Ron approached, his expression tense but determined. General, this is it. Their main fleet, their command center. If we take this down, the war could end. But the risk, our fleet is small compared to theirs, even with the Chiron. That is what makes us human. Voss addressed her fleet. This is our moment. The Vorath believe they are unstoppable, that the galaxy is theirs. They have underestimated humans. They have underestimated courage, ingenuity, and the will to survive. Today, we show them that no empire, no fleet, and no terror can withstand humans united with determination. General, the civilians, the outer colonies, they're counting on us. If we fail. Small human ships moved quickly, striking at Vorath supply lines and weaker outposts to draw their attention. Meanwhile, larger vessels prepared to engage the main fleet directly. Every movement was precise, every maneuver daring. The Vorath responded swiftly. Energy beams lashed across space, striking human vessels. Explosions shook smaller ships, and alarms blared across the fleet. But human pilots were agile, weaving through debris with skill born of desperation and ingenuity. Engineers rerouted power to shields and engines, keeping ships in the fight even as damage accumulated. The Chiron waited, silent and calculating, until the humans had fully engaged. Then they struck. Massive vessels descended like predators, tearing through Vorath ships with terrifying precision. The humans watched in awe as the flagship of the Vorath fleet shuddered under combined attacks. Ron's voice trembled. General, it's working. They're actually breaking. Humans survive by thinking, adapting, and daring the impossible. Every member of the human fleet contributed to the fight, showing creativity and bravery that machines could not anticipate. The Vorath High Commander activated a massive weapon, sending waves of energy across the battlefield. Several human ships were struck and destroyed instantly. Alarms blared and panic threatened to take hold. Voss remained calm. Adapt, improvise. That is how humans survive. Use the asteroids, the debris, the environment. Focus on what the enemy does not expect. The Chiron continued their assault, striking key Vorath vessels from angles no human could have predicted. The combined assault created chaos among the enemy ranks. Vorath ships faltered, weapons misfired, and smaller fleets scattered. The tide of the battle was shifting. Ron looked at the display, astonished. General, the flagship, it's faltering. Their command structure is breaking down. The Vorath weapons were too large and rigid to maneuver effectively in the tight space. Human pilots struck from unexpected angles, targeting weak points with precision. The Chiron joined from above and behind, striking the flagship with devastating force. Explosions tore through the massive vessel, shaking the fleet. Smaller Vorath ships began to retreat, their formation collapsing under the combined human and Chiron assault. Voss addressed her officers. Do not relent. Keep pressure on them. Every strike matters. Every maneuver counts. Humanity fights not for glory, but for survival. That is our power. They're falling apart. The remaining Vorath ships scattered, retreating into the void. The humans had achieved the impossible. They had destroyed the enemy's main fleet and command center. Voss allowed herself a small, quiet smile. Humans fight. Humans endure. Humans survive. Today we have proven it. They respected our courage. They had shown courage, ingenuity, and the will to endure against an empire that believed them weak. Voss turned to Ron. The Chiron may leave now or they may stay. We do not know their motives, but what matters is that humanity has survived and proven its strength. That is the legacy we leave. Humans fought the impossible and won. But for the first time, the humans no longer feared them. They had fought alongside them, survived against impossible odds, and proven their courage. Humanity had earned its place in the galaxy, not because of raw power, but because of ingenuity, determination, and the unyielding human spirit. Across countless star systems, survivors began to rebuild. Planets that had been destroyed were slowly restored. Communication networks were reestablished. And somewhere in the vastness of space, the Vorath fled, their empire broken, their power diminished. Voss allowed herself a quiet thought. The war had been long, brutal, and terrifying. Humanity had lost much, but in the end they had survived, and survival was only the beginning. She addressed her fleet one last time. We fight not because it is easy, but because it is necessary. We survive not because we are the strongest, but because we refuse to give up. Humanity endures, and that is something no force in the galaxy can ever take away. Humanity, we've done it. Humanity had faced extinction, had called on fear itself for aid, and had triumphed. And somewhere beyond human understanding, the Chiron watched, silent but perhaps approving. The war was over, the galaxy remembered, and humanity had survived. Not through sheer power, not through invincibility, but through courage, ingenuity, and the unbreakable human spirit. And so, humanity endured, ready to face whatever the universe would throw at them next.